For the first time in Classic Tetris Monthly history, a DAS tournament featuring the top 16 qualifiers in the world has been created. Done originally as a test tournament to gauge interest, the ensuing turnout was something that was not expected. This is the Classic Tetris Monthly DAS Masters preview, possibly the most stacked DAS event ever. CTM is the biggest online tournament known for its monthly tournaments and big prize pools for its highest tier of event, otherwise known as the Masters event. Normally, the Masters event is open to all play styles, but you would need rolling in order to have a chance and qualify. But the head organizer of CTM, Vandy, has decided to create a DAS event celebrating masters of the DAS playstyle. But for those of you that don't know, what is DAS? Well, a quick rundown of DAS is simply holding the pieces left or right to move, as opposed to tapping or what is done nowadays at the highest level, rolling. DAS moves at equivalent of 10 Hz or 10 taps per second. This means that there are restrictions to how high you can build on 19 speeds, and level 29 is barely playable. But why a DAS event specifically? Well, in September, there is a big event that will be at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, since CTWC already happened, no spoilers though. This event is the Jonas Cup and will be a DAS-only event. So in preparation for that event, CTM has decided to experiment with a DAS-only tournament to gauge interest. But the outcome of creating something like this was not expected. 76 players submitted a qualifier. 76! And how many make the bracket? Only 16. The qualifying system is an average of your top 2 scores in an hour. Of the submitted qualifiers, 35 of them had averages above 900k. Hell, there are 21 players with over a max average. That means that 5 players having over 1 million points didn't make the bracket, me being one of the players unfortunately. So let's talk about the players that did make the bracket. In the blue bracket you have Matt Martin seated at 4th, Blank seated at 5th, Andy seated at 12th, and Boxy seated at 13th. The green bracket consists of Geo seated at 2nd, Tegamek at 7th, Sidnev at 10th, and Meme at 15th seed. The orange bracket has some really heavy-hitting players in Fractal at 1st seed, Scuttlebozo at 8th seed, Miles at 9th seed, and Maestro at 16th seed. And finally, the scariest bracket in my opinion, the red bracket. This bracket consists of the 3rd seed Zafanya Ninu, 6th seed Dog, 11th seed Salted Sofa, and 14th seed NGC Man. These 16 players make the first edition of DAS Masters incredibly scary. Now that we know who our players are, we're going to dive into each of the brackets and talk about potential favorites and dark horses and such. Starting with the most dangerous bracket, the red bracket. As mentioned prior, this bracket contains Dog, Ninu, NGC Man, and Sofa. Out of these players, Dog, after getting a new PB on the 8th, barely has the lowest PB of the 4 with 1,273,000. That is the lowest PB of the 4. Dog, of course, is a 2-time world champion and is very competitively practiced, so for sure he's going to be a massive threat in the bracket. Now, a big surprise coming from this bracket is Ninu. Not only has it been a while since we've seen him play in his qualifier, but he dropped a 1.191 and a 1.073 to secure his 3rd seed. Being the only non-US player in this bracket, he can definitely make some noise and represent the international player base. Now, we start talking about NGC Man, one of the few DAS 1.3 players. With a few CT DAS wins under his belt, he definitely can be competitive, but being his current seed, he will have to play Ninu first round. And now the dark horse, Salted Sofa. Sofa actually has a PB 1,000 points higher than Dog at 1,274,000. Back in 2022, Sofa, in conjunction with me, had a then combined DAS world record of 2.1 million. Just something to keep in mind. This bracket is scheduled for July 13th at 11 AM Central. Next, we are diving into the blue bracket. This bracket contains heavy hitters as well, with Boxy having the lowest PB of the bunch at 1,173,000. Considering the field in this particular bracket, he would be considered the underdog, but on a level playing field, anything can happen. Speaking of anything that can happen, Andy is quite the scary one in the field, as not only has he always been a strong DAS player since the start of his career, but he had also recently set 2 29-star DAS world records. One scoring 85,803 points and 19 lines with DAS, and the other clearing 45 lines on 29 with DAS, not rolling or tapping. And he is definitely a player to be on the lookout for. However, we have 2 players that can easily cause disruptions in this bracket, one of those being Matt Martin. Matt Martin originally held 1st seed before Ninu qualified with a higher average of 1,129,000. So clearly he could throw down some big scores, and he has gotten competitive maxes, even a 1.1 and Gauntlet to win sudden death game against Miles. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. Last but not least, we have Blank. Not really playing in comp much lately, Blank certainly surprises. After having the first qual voided, Blank would actually qual even better, getting a 1,230,000 and a 1,018,000. As a similar boat in Matt Martin, Blank has gotten incredible comp scores in the past, but must play Andy round 1. This bracket is scheduled for July 14th at 2 PM Central. Following that, we have perhaps the most diverse bracket, the green bracket. Now honestly, this bracket can actually go in a lot of directions. First, you have the second seed, Geo, who not only got 2 1.1s in this qualifier, but also on the 8th got the first ever DAS back-5-back max out, although the first game wasn't recorded. I mean, just imagine a 5-game set where your opponent gets at least a max every game. But next we have to talk about Sidnev, the most aggressive player out of this bracket, I would argue. Dropping 2 maxes in qual earned Sidnev 10th seed, and will be playing up against Tegamek first round. Which Tegamek in of itself is a surprise. Not in the fact that he qualified, or that he qualified relatively high, but in the sheer fact that he's playing. In the past, he's always been a strong DAS player turned roller, so it'll be interesting to see what he do. And last but not least, we have Meme. And honestly, I'm not too familiar with Meme's DAS potential, but considering Meme did make the bracket, we can see some high 900s being thrown around. This bracket will play on the 15th at noon Central. And saving the orange bracket for last, because at least at the planned release of this video it will be happening tonight, this bracket has Fractal, Scotto, Miles, and Maestro in it. Starting with the heavy favorite in the bracket, we have the 2023 World Champion, Fractal, who is also number 1 seed with qualifying scores of 1,220,000 and 1,106,000. And I'm not gassing him up for no reason. In this 60-minute qual, he got 2 900Ks, 2 max outs, a 1.1, and a 1.2. And if you think that quals are different than competitive play, you'd normally be right, but that doesn't apply to Fractal. We're talking about the same guy in one of the most legendary modern DAS games in Game 4 of the DAS National Finals and Lone Star last year. He scored a 1,191,000 against my 1,121,000, not only forcing a decider, but setting a combined DAS world record of 2.313 million points. But despite all that, this bracket isn't secured. A player that can very much contest Fractal is Miles. Miles has been a strong player of all playstyles, being one of the few to have a 1.2 trifecta, or having a 1.2 in DAS, hyper tapping, and rolling. And with a min-max qualifier, he can certainly disrupt Fractal's plan to make it out the bracket. Speaking of disruptors, one with such potential is Scotto Bozo. Despite not being the highlight in this bracket, he can still throw down with immaculate DAS control, and being very competitively practiced and consistent, he can definitely qualify as the dark horse of this bracket. And now, the underdog, comparatively speaking, Maestro. Despite having the second lowest PB in the bracket and playing Fractal round 1, he can still make some noise. And if he is able to make it out of this bracket, he would make a statement that is loud and clear. This bracket will be played tonight at 7 PM Central. So, that's going to do it for this preview. All in all, this tournament will be insane. Modern DAS greats like Heps, Mark Migas, Tristot, Tugi, and even myself were unable to get a top 16 spot this month. But next month, the tournament will be expanded to include, I believe, 4 tiers? But of course I'm going to throw this to you. Now I want to ask you all, who do you think will make it out of each bracket? Make sure to comment down your predictions below. But once again, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. If you want to join my Discord so you can stay up to date on all things that I'm doing in regards to Tetris and outside of Tetris stuff, then the link to that will also be in the description. And as you guys can see, I'm finally starting to create some more polished content, so stay tuned. Also, I am starting to stream on Twitch a lot more often, and I'm soon going to be pushing for partner. So if you want to, be part of that journey for me pushing for partner, make sure you join the Discord server, get the partner push roll, and stop by my streams. Anyways, I am your favorite underwater host, Sharky, and I'll see you all in the next video.